So here's a subtle but very powerful marketing strategy that NFT Project Overworld used to launch, become arguably one of the biggest drops of 2023 and make over $2 million on their mint. And if this is the first time we meet, my name is Leon Aboud, and through my NFT Growth Consulting firm, Unfungible, I aim to build some of the world's largest and strongest community. So if you yourself are a brand looking to launch or scale in the Web3 space, make sure you check us out by clicking the link in the description of this video so you can learn how we can help you and how you can get involved with us. Now, if you haven't heard Overworld, there was one thing that they did that I noticed was unique to Overworld that I have not seen any other NFT project or Web3 brand really do well or properly. And that small strategy is exactly what I wanted to communicate in today's video so you can learn how it works and how you can apply that within your project. Now, for you to understand what is that strategy and how it works, I want to introduce to you the marketing concept called anchoring. Anchoring, if you don't know, is a piece of information like a price or a number that plays a very important role in the subsequent decision making or perception that you have over something. And that is something I learned from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. By far, one of my favorite books about marketing and marketing psychology. He gives this example where they created two simulations, where the first simulation was the very first piano that people saw walking into the shop was a very expensive, grand piano, the top of the top, with a price tag that is ridiculously high. And the second simulation was the very first piano that people saw when they walked into the store was the cheapest piano that was there. What they found that was so interesting about this experiment is that when they started off by showing the most expensive piano, what ended up happening is people seeing that super expensive price tag up front ended up making all the other options in the shop feel like a bargain. And it ended up increasing the average purchasing price per customer when they started off with the high anchor than when they started off with the low anchor. And there are hundreds of studies conducted about anchoring. And on average, across every study, they've noticed a 30 to 50% increase in average buying price when you introduce an anchor within your product or within your brand. So that's great, Leon, but how does that work for Overworld? And that's where I want to introduce you to Overworld's Supporter Key. Something Overworld started doing from the very first days that they had their marketing live was they had a very small supply, very exclusive NFT that they called the Supporter Key. And if we are to look at the Supporter Key on OpenSea, it currently sits at 11 Ethereum floor price. And here's what the description says. The Supporter Key is a free 100 limited supply reward granted to Overworld's best Twitter supporters and ambassadors. The Supporters Key grants free NFT for all future paid mints, including the Genesis PFP, land sale, tier 1 whitelist position, and double the token airdrop and allocations forever as part of the Overworld ecosystem. And it is super interesting because you notice as the project was marketing, the average floor of the Supporter Key for most of the history of Overworld marketing for 6 months was between that 0.5 to 1 Ethereum range. But then 6 weeks ahead of the mint, this is where you started to see the floor price of that key climb up, reaching all the way, I caught it at 69.42 Ethereum, but obviously there was only one NFT listed at that price. It was not a liquid floor, but the average selling price of those keys in the last couple weeks was 10 Ethereum. So what they did, and this is really interesting from a marketing perspective, is all of a sudden, without even having their main collection live, Overworld had an NFT that was already on the marketplace. It gave something for people to give a perceived value to the brand. The Supporter Key allowed Overworld to anchor the perceived entry into the Overworld ecosystem at a certain price. And the way Overworld was able to make the Supporter Key very expensive is by using 3 things. Number 1, scarcity. Although it's mentioned that there are 100 keys, there's only 79 keys in circulation. So it's a very small, very scarce supply of keys. Number 2, the way they gave the keys was by rewarding people who were already engaged and who were put in work, effort, and energy. And when you are someone on Twitter who's been grinding for the last 3 months on on Overworld, engaging with every single post they make, just being everywhere, trying to keep up with all the news, and you get all of a sudden a present from the founder or from the team with being the Overworld Supporter Key. You've invested so much time, effort, and energy into this that you are not just going to be flooring this NFT for a couple $100s. The perceived emotional value that this NFT has for you is so high because you've spent so much time, energy into getting it. And number 3, the utility that they attached to the NFT was clear, but there was still enough speculation because you knew what you would get, which is pretty much lifetime access to all drops within the Overworld ecosystem. But then what is the perceived value of that? How much do people perceive the entry into the lifetime access into the Overworld ecosystem? So the utility was clear, but there was still enough speculation to allow the price to go up and down. Imagine if the supporter key was just like, you're gonna get $1,000 worth of tokens. Great, but it would be missing that speculative element. And I remember as the project was marketing, every once in a while, I would see on my timeline people taking screenshots of the floor price of the Overworld supporter key with like, it just hit 5 ETH, it just hit 10 ETH, no way the floor is at 69.42. And that's how you know when people are paying attention, you know that the anchor worked. Now, something very important before you go out there and you're like, okay, I need an anchor within my product. You need to know and you need to understand that the anchor, just like it can have a positive influence on your project's perceived value, it can also have a negative one. Had the supporter key been at a 0.5 Ethereum floor price and the team was asking for a 0.15 mint for their main collection, it would have never worked and the anchor would have actually had a negative value. And a safe rule of thumb you want to think about for your anchor is you always want your anchor to be 10 times the perceived value of your brand. And that is something we've seen in the NFT space. Typically, the first collection, the Genesis collection, with secondary collections, you typically have a 5 to 10x delta between those. So for example, currently Bored Ape Yacht Club is sitting at 30 ETH, Mutant Apes are sitting at 5 ETH. So that's a 6x difference between the two. Azuki are sitting at 6.5 ETH and Elementals are sitting at 0.6 ETH. So that's a 10x difference. D-Gods are at a 3 Ethereum, Utes are at a 0.4. So that's about an 8x difference. So you can see how the market always has that 5 to 10x difference between the main collection and secondary collections. So all of a sudden you can even dive deeper into this phenomenon and be like, okay, so Overworld minted at 0.15 Ethereum. The supporter key was at 10 Ethereum. So logically, the perceived value of the brand should be 10x divided by 10 of that, which is 1 Ethereum. So how people saw this play, the Overworld play, was the delta of 0.15 and 1 ETH was all profit. This was how the market saw, and this is what led the brand to sell out in less than 1 minute. And guess what? Now that they've sold out, now that there is secondary volume, guess where the NFT is sitting at? It's at 1.5 Ethereum, which fits perfectly within our 5 to 10x range that we've seen. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you create an anchor within your brand. Think within your ecosystem, how can you create a price perception that is so high that makes the rest of your ecosystem look like a bargain? And just to give you a final example I got from some of my friends, we have an entrepreneurship group and it's for an event attendance, event ticket. The live admission, so you watching on your computer, was $97. The live plus replay was $300. The live plus replay plus behind the scenes, where you actually get to hang out with the organizer of this conference, was $50,000. Like, this is ridiculous. I don't think anyone bought this $50,000. However, like, just seeing that, 50K on the screen and then $97 makes the $97 look so cheap. So that's an extreme case scenario of anchoring being used in products. It is something you see very regularly, very often. But now that you understand how that could work within the Web3 space and within your NFT collection, you can start understanding how you can engineer an anchor that will help you as part of your marketing efforts. I hope it was helpful, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what your thoughts were by leaving me a comment in the description of this video. And I am going to be seeing you in the very next video. Cheers.